Oliveira and Max Holloway are two of the most popular fighters right now, two of the biggest draws in the UFC, and the fans love the fighting styles of both Max and both Charles. So this was a very hype fight. Everybody was ready for this fight. A lot of people after watching this fight were let down. What people were upset about is the fact that Max Holloway lost this fight dominantly and it was all on the ground. There wasn't much striking. The striking exchanges that did happen, we'll get into it later, were very short, you know, very short sequences followed up by wrestling. And obviously fans didn't like it. So I feel that this is a larger problem with the UFC community and with sports as a whole. Is the fact that when these fights happen, we always look at it through a negative lens instead of doing what I'm about to do right now, which is saying congratulations to Charles Oliveira for winning what is possibly the biggest fight of his career, the fight that most people will remember him for, and beating the best fighter he's ever fought. Now, obviously, Charles has had championship fights. He's won belts before, so this quote unquote on paper wouldn't be the biggest fight he's ever had, but obviously this is the best fighter he's ever fought and the best win on his resume so far. Going into this fight, which is so crazy to me, is the fact that everybody was counting Charles out. Everybody was saying Charles, he cannot grapple. Max Holloway at least. Everybody was saying that he was going to struggle to keep him on the ground. Everybody was saying that if it stayed on the feet, Max Holloway was going to knock him out. Everybody was saying that this was going to be an easy fight for Max Holloway. And I was one of the people who was saying, man, look, if Charles Oliveira can get in there and win, that would not surprise me at all. Now, I did have Max knocking Charles out in the second round going into this fight. I did think that Max was going to beat Charles, that Charles was a little bit too easy to hit, and Charles wasn't going to use which won him the fight, which was his wrestling. He wasn't going to use his best tool, and I thought Max was going to go in there and get the dub. But obviously, it turned out that Charles Oliveira used what got him to the dance in the UFC, which is his high-level grappling. Obviously, when this fight started, people were expecting a barn burner, fight of the year contender on the feet. Obviously, Charles and Max both have a pressure style. They both walk their opponents down and land combinations. Max with the hands, Charles with, the Muay Thai, the knees, the elbows, a little bit of boxing, a little bit of kickboxing, obviously. From the moment this fight started, Charles closed the distance, landed a couple shots, and once he got to the clinch, it was very apparent that Charles was the much bigger man. Obviously, both men fought at 145, but Charles cut a significantly more amount of weight going down, and he even missed weight at 155 after he moved up. So Charles is definitely the bigger man, and once he clinched him, Max went for a ride every time. And once he got Max down, Max did pretty much never got up. I think it was something close to 21 minutes of control time on the ground. And for the whole first round, it seemed like Charles could have gotten Max out of there multiple times. Obviously, Max had good defense, but there was multiple times where he was on the neck crank and it was looking real scary, but he never quite got up under the chin. And, later in the round, he started hitting him with some elbows and roughing him up. What people keep saying is that Charles never took chances and Charles never, pushed the pace to try to get a finish. And I just don't find that to be true. I think what has happened is so many people have gotten used to these barn burner fights. And when somebody fights on the ground like this, especially when it's Charles and Max, people always jump to the conclusion that it was boring because they don't want to see the grappling. But at the end of the day, this is MMA. And I find it confusing because there's kickboxing and there's boxing, but a lot of these people don't want to go watch these sports, which have no grappling, because they find them boring. But then when we have grappling in the UFC, you also call that boring. It's very odd to me. I think the best point that people made was that people expected this to be a BMF fight, and so Charles should have fought a lot more exciting. And while I do understand that point, at the end of the day, that's on the UFC for promoting this as a BMF fight. This fight could have been a main event in and of itself. This was a huge fight. This is a fight that a lot of people consider to be a number one contenders fight after Gaethje gets his shot at Ilya Topuria. So for Max to go in there and do what he did, he's viewing this as a means to an end. This is the win to get back to the title fight, which is what both of these guys want. These guys don't value the BMF title outside of the title, the optics of them holding a belt, and obviously them going on to fight Ilia Topuria for the championship. It's so important for Charles Oliveira to fight the way people wanted him to fight. Why is a guy like Michael Chandler so underestimated or so underrated in this modern UFC? He's a guy that people make fun of because he never got the Conor fight, even after he put, his neck out there for the UFC multiple times, went out there, fought hard, and abandoned the game plan multiple times. And now people make fun of him for doing what they wanted Charles to do. Because to me, at the end of the day, this once again was a legacy fight. So Max is the best fighter Charles has ever fought. So for him to go in there and do that, people are 5-10 years from now are going to look at that fight and say, man, Charles Oliveira went in there and beat prime Max Holloway. Not only did he do it, he dominated him. And that's all that matters, because if he lost, where's Charles at now? He's back into the drawing board, right? He's back to the drawing board. He's trying to get his next win, trying to see, if he can get back to that title. And losing to Max, it probably would have dimmed his chances by a lot. But now he's at max one fight away from the belt, if not fighting for the belt next, depending on if Ilia goes up or not. So this was a big win for Charles. And what I want people to understand is that I'm not going to try to convince you that this fight was exciting or boring. I do think a lot of people are too hard on grapplers nowadays, and they use guys like Khabib to justify, man, you got to go out there and smash. First of all, Khabib is an anomaly. He's probably one of the 10 greatest fighters we've ever seen in the sport. Not only that, Khabib had boring fights. Khabib wasn't all smash all the time. There were rounds that he took off. There were fights like Al Quinta or Abel Trujillo where if he couldn't get you down and smash you, he just took you down over and over again or just pressured you into a decision. He jabbed Al to a decision. The 3 fights people remember Khabib for the most are the fights that they try to pretend like that's how Khabib fought every fight. Go look at some of Khabib's other fights in the UFC and you'll see how good Khabib was on the ground, of course. But you won't see all the smashing that you saw versus Conor, versus Dustin, versus Gaethje. You won't see that style of fight. And I want people to understand that that's not how fighting works in championship fights, especially how good Max is on the ground. Max hasn't been a guy that we've seen get taken down, get put in compromising positions on the ground much, if ever. This is Max Holloway we're talking about. So for Charles to go out there and take him down at will, control him at will, threaten submissions, cut him open with shots on the ground, and then when it gets on the feet, he's also landing powerful shots on the feet. He hit him with a knee, I believe in the 3rd round, where the trash ass UFC stream got cut off from Paramount and we missed it. So we got to see it through the replay. Y'all need to fix that. The goal is to appreciate what Charles Oliveira did. Everybody wants to get the headline. Everybody wants to get the clickbait. But at the end of the day, all people are going to care about 5-10 years from now is who won and who lost. People are not going to care about the BMF belt. People are not going to care about pretty much the interim belt as well and how you performed in it. People are going to remember if you won or lost. And at the end of the day, Charles Oliveira won. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, make sure you let me know down in the comments. Make sure you hype this video if you're on mobile. That helps it pretty much like the most you can in the algorithm. So we would appreciate that a lot. And most of all for me, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can see more content in the future. Peace out.